Welcome everyone. My name is Gerard. I'm a Senior Manager in RSM's AI and Data Analytics practice based in Melbourne. Today I'd like to speak with you about, more generally, generative AI and more specifically the use of large language models, which is probably the most practical application of generative AI within organizations today. This is some research out of the US that I think was quite relevant and sort of shows where power users are finding value in deploying or using AI within their organizations. Two that we'll focus on specifically today. One is a summarisation case study. So we'll look at a government department who has implemented that and ways in which we've used assurance over that system. And one that's close to my heart is around analytics and the use of generative AI or LLMs for analytics. And we're finding there's fantastic benefit and value from using large language models to analyze large volumes of documents, whether they be physical archives or whether they are digitized already. But we're able to access this information in ways which we've never been able to access before. So if you happen to be sitting on a large treasure trove of documents that actually is more of a waste of space than otherwise, you may find now there's actual value that can be untapped from that. I equate this to finding needles in haystacks. It's a really good way or application for doing that. Some applications we see are around customer complaints information. So you might have a lot of emails that just aren't really well structured and you can't really get meaning out of that information. Or another application being things like occupational health and safety data. You might have near-miss incidents, which can lead to actual loss events and more risky failures in the organization. So some really great use cases there for generative AI. But how do we do it in a safe and responsible way? Because that's a really important aspect of it for meeting our stakeholders' expectations. So our next slide, please. In Australia, we have existing laws like our privacy laws, our information protection laws, IP, and human rights laws, which obviously these are staples in our society. To help us stay within those laws, we have a set of AI ethics principles, and that helps us with delivering safe, secure, and reliable AI in our organizations. And some more practical guidance that aligns with that is this voluntary AI safety standard, which was released about 12 months ago. And it provides 10 guardrails to help us understand how we should be implementing or having processes and practices in place around accountability, risk management, data governance, being transparent around the use of AI, and having meaningful ways for people to intervene in the process so that the AI is not in control, but people are in control of it. In line with both of these is a national framework for assurance of AI in government. Now, this is a framework which has been signed up to by all of the states and territories and is a tool which we've used, and I'll go through the case study in a moment, where we've used this to provide confidence in the AI solutions that are being deployed within departments, within organizations. There's really only one requirement of organizations in Australia at the moment, and that is for non-corporate Commonwealth entities. And it's a policy around that they're required to have an appointed accountable officer and a transparency statement that they publish and they keep updated. Now, although this is at a Commonwealth level, we can expect that other levels of government may adopt the same or similar processes as well. So it's worthwhile keeping that in your sights that may be coming at some stage as well. Thanks, Aaron. So the case study. This is a government department who had used AI, generative AI, large language models for summarising a large volume of survey responses. Now, they wanted to deliver timely results, and so the use of generative AI was a really important use case for them to be able to move quickly. What they did was they used it to summarise the survey responses into themes. They tallied up the number of responses associated with those themes and provided or included a sample of responses relating to those themes. This allowed them to break down that information into a much more digestible format. The way they went about it, they had an in-house developer who created an AI system. He used an open source language model. Now, this is a small language model because we can download it and we can run it on a laptop. The outputs from that AI system were produced to a quality review team who verified the outputs, those summaries, and checked them against the source information to check that they were relevant and representative. We reviewed this system and process against the assurance framework. Just click on that now, Aaron, and it's just come up with another extra bit. The audit approach we took was we looked against the 10 guardrails. We interviewed the developer and the quality leads to understand the process. And we independently tested the same model, the same open source model, against the same prompt that was used. But we created a mock data set that we could test against. And we knew what we expected to receive or get as outputs from that. And we tested the model repeatedly to see whether or not we got reliable, repeatable results from that testing. Separately to that, we independently tested the model for bias. So this is important to consider about how people might be disadvantaged or by particular models and the models that people might select. And we evaluated alternative prompts, alternative models and settings, configuration settings, to see whether or not we could make improvements to this process. Just click on again. The findings from this were, we found that the human reviewers was a really important aspect of having meaningful oversight and intervention within the process, feeding back information to the developer and getting iterating on the results. The use of the local open source models was an important aspect of this as well to maintain data security and sovereignty of the information. So no data left the network, no data left the country. And this is a really important aspect from an AI perspective and the use of AI within organizations, particularly government applications of it. Some improvements we found to this and some were there was inconsistencies in the outputs. So the system wouldn't produce reliable results as we found it. We were able to propose some solutions which helped the solution reduce the hallucinations, so making up information that can happen with these models. And we were able to propose solutions that made them 100% repeatable, and we reduced hallucinations to 0 in our testing. And so this was able to give the stakeholders confidence in the AI system that it was producing reliable results. The only thing that we said was a limitation of it was the language model this particular generation of language model was not good with numbers, not good with tallying up numbers. So we had to say, look, you can't rely on this information. These numbers that it's generating, they're not reliable. So that was our only really concern from that perspective. The challenge from a government perspective is challenges for government. Managing that value of the speed of processing and the volume of being able to cut through this volume of information, managing that against the risk that it poses. Very important considerations for government departments. Just clicking through, Aaron, next one. So how can you use assurance of AI within your organizations? Well, you can think about it from an organizational context, thinking about who within the organization is ultimately accountable for AI. What's our organizational use across the organization for who's using AI and in for what applications? What are our policies like? If we think about our strategy, are our applications or our use cases in line with our business strategy? And are we getting return on investment for those approaches? If we think about the case study we just talked through, reviewing AI systems and processes, an assurance type of review over that. And similarly, as an inbuilt system, an in-house built system, reviewing that for model testing, configuration, prompts and outputs, this sort of very tangible, hands-on type of reviews. But if it's a vendor solution, you may not be able to get under the hood as much as you are with an in-house built system. And so you might need to look at the procurement processes, for example, and think about things like you should always be thinking about data sovereignty and data privacy. If you're deploying solutions such as chatbots, thinking about how do we control what information people are inputting into those models to prevent things like attacks and people going off topic in their discussions with these chatbots, as well as the output. So how do we make sure that these chatbots aren't producing or leaking personal or confidential information that might sit within the knowledge repositories that they're provided with? Clicking through the next one. Thanks, Aaron. So some key audit questions you might consider if you are coming into an AI type of audit, thinking about accountability, the human controls that are in place, thinking about the bias, risk of discrimination and disadvantage, the use of personal information, how it's being used, how it's being disclosed. From a data governance perspective, a bit of a change here is that I guess our data governance has traditionally governed what's in our enterprise systems, our well-defined systems within our organization. It doesn't usually include the documents within our organization. They might be in file repositories or wherever they might be. And so it tends not to be well governed traditionally. So we might need to think about changing the lens from a data governance perspective and what we mean by data governance. Next one. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah. So how we can help you is we can help you with prioritizing use cases and thinking about your AI strategy. We can help you navigate the applications of AI and data governance. If you think about those analytical applications of getting information out of those archives, thinking about structuring and gaining insights from that data that might exist within the organization, and also from a frameworks, policy, and standards perspective in applying for responsible and safe use of AI. We can help you with that, and there's an article there. If you follow through that QR code, we'll take you to an article that's we've got relating to that. Thank you, Roger. I'll pass it back to you now.